My name is Landon Dennis. I'm 36 years old, and I'm from St. George, Utah. I grew up in the most amazing, wonderful, loving home with wonderful parents, but we lived in this house. It had ghosts and dark entities that would mess with me. I remember the first time it happened, I would go to bed at night, and all of a sudden I felt this just horrible, like gives you goosebumps, hair on your neck stand up feeling. And I went to go move this one night and I could not move. I was paralyzed and it terrified me. And I looked towards the corner of the room because I could feel some type of energy coming from there. And when I looked towards the corner of that room, I saw this tall, dark figure. And it looked as if you were to put a cloak on somebody, and this thing would mess with me all the time. It was terrifying. I call them shadow people because he wasn't the only one. He was just the scariest one for me. And so those type of things growing up in this house, and those were the bad things. But I also have really, really cool things that have happened to me. The night that my niece passed away in a car accident when she was young, I think about 16, she came to me in a dream right before my dad got the phone call from my sister that she passed away. She came to me in that dream and talked with me and comforted me. I've also had experiences with my grandpa who passed away, who's come to me in dreams. So yeah, I grew up having paranormal experiences my whole life, good and bad. And later in my life, I got into some accidents. I'm very accident prone. I drove off a sand dune cliff on a four-wheeler, almost died, broke bones. And that introduced me to pain pills and drugs. And so from that time on, I had a really bad addiction, first to pain pills, and then it turned to heroin. And I ruined a lot of things in my life through addiction because I let so many dark forces take a hold of me that addiction was all, and others can understand it takes over your life. And so I was just a drug addict. I lost a home, lost my fiance, lost my first daughter that I'm still trying to hopefully finally get in touch with someday. But then I went to, if I wasn't in jail for drug use, then I was living on the streets, homeless. But I don't mean to make people think that I was this really bad person. I wasn't. I was such a loving, kind person like my parents raised me to be, but I would do things in order to get drugs that I would normally never do, like lie, steal, cheat, those type of things, even especially from my loved ones. That was the worst. Wouldn't even be other people. I'd be stealing from my loved ones. And so right before my NDE, I was living homeless behind this church on gravel. I remember I would have a sleeping bag. I was miserable, but I also came to the conclusion at that time that I am worthless. If this is what my life is going to contain, that I can't keep anything good and I'll push everything away, my life is worthless. And I got remarried after this. And so this one day, I was at my parents' house and they were away in St. George, and me and my wife were there. And again, deep into addiction, I just went straight to the bathroom. And I know how I did my drugs, and I would sit up on a counter, a high counter, and look into it and do it. And I guess I overdosed and had some type of seizure, and I fell backwards off that high counter straight to my head on the tile and just cracked it. And my wife came to check on me, and she just saw me laying on the ground with a puddle of blood under my head swelling up just like a balloon. And so she called the paramedics. They threw me in the ambulance and rushed into the hospital. And this is where I come back to my NDE. All of a sudden, I was above this ambulance. And I would say I was about, 4 feet. It's hard to explain, 4 feet above the ambulance. But I could see through the ambulance as if, imagine an ambulance being made out of saran wrap. but still a saran wrap ambulance that you could see through type thing. It was almost like that, and I saw this group of men just working on me, and I felt so much depression, so much anxiety, so much grief, so much loss. It's just anything that you can think of that can make you feel really bad is what I was feeling above that, but all at once. And I was so confused. I didn't understand what was happening, that I was looking at myself with these people working on me. And this is another thing. I remember I could tell the ambulance was just driving down the street fast. But me above it, I didn't feel like I was moving at all, but I was still going right with it. And I remember one thought in my head is, wow, is this it? Am I like a ghost stuck above my body for the rest of my life? And it was terrifying, horrible. That happened years ago, and when I think about those feelings, it gives me such bad anxiety and stuff because it was very, very real. And so I remember it almost got to the point where I couldn't handle it anymore. And not even the things that I was seeing, because I wasn't even necessarily focused on the things I was seeing. I could see me through the ambulance and them working on me, putting this drill needle thing in my knee. I didn't feel physical pain. I was just feeling all the emotional and spiritual pain at that time when I was watching this. And honestly, I would have rather felt that physical pain in my knee. People say it's one of the worst things that they can do to you to get an IV in you, but that emotional and spiritual pain above that ambulance was indescribable. And when it got to a point that it was almost too much, just boom. There was no white tunnel. There was nothing like that. I was just all of a sudden standing in this huge, beautiful grass field, a beautiful green. And at first, it was just me standing there. But what was crazy is when I looked down at the grass, I wish I could describe the color and the feelings I got just from this grass with words, but words are so inadequate. The way I've come to think of it is like spiritual experiences are almost indescribable in human words, but I do the best I can. And that grass loved me. It was an amazing sensation. And as I'm looking down, I could see every blade of grass. And I looked up farther, and I would say about a quarter mile away was just this hill, kind of just rainbow-shaped hill. But I could still see every blade of grass in front of me, even if I was focusing on the distance. Like if you were to try to stand in a football field and, you can look down and start seeing each blade when you focus. But if you look down at the other end zone, you're not going to see each blade. You're just going to see a kind of a field of grass meshed. But when I looked up towards that hill, I could still see each blade of grass perfectly. And I don't have good eyesight. Like I wear glasses. I don't have good eyesight. And it's hard to describe that when you can see this thing that on earth is just grass to you. But there, it was something that was loving me and comforting me, because it was kind of shocking to be there at first. I was a little overwhelmed. Like I can imagine, going from where I was to this. And I saw that hill. And I saw these beautiful lights behind that hill. And the way I'll describe it is if you were to take a big spotlight and just shine it up from behind a hill, people would see that single spotlight. But if you were to put like a diamond or something on top of that spotlight, it was almost like that. Like these colors were indescribable. And when I saw that, I felt my grandpa, who passed away years before, and there was many, many lights behind this hill, but that my grandpa was this reddish, is the best word I have for it, light. And he was sending me love, and Again, the words can't describe what I felt, but I knew it was him, and it was almost like he just was hugging me and saying, I love you. And then I noticed this beautiful purplish violet type light, and I knew it was my niece. And she did the same thing to me. And what was cool about it is when they were doing this to me, it was like they were confirming to me that, yes, we are still here. We are still your family, and we still love you. And we will see you again. But for some reason, wherever I was in that field, I could only see them as lights behind this hill. And to this day, I wonder what is the meaning of that, why behind that hill. And when I wanted to go back there after feeling this, I felt this wonderful presence kind of behind me to my right. So I turn a little bit, and there's this beautiful young lady standing there, and I would say about 30. She just kind of had her head tilted a little bit and just smiling at me. And it was so comforting. She was looking at me like she knew what I was experiencing. She was like, how cool is this for him to see this again? And I say again because I feel like I knew that place somehow. And that's when she started not speaking with me. I use the word communicate because her lips did not move. And she started talking with me because I wanted to go back behind that hill, because the love I felt from my family members, it was so amazing. And she started speaking with me. It's telepathically. Her mouth wasn't moving, but it was through emotions and like almost experiences. Like if she would have had an experience in life about a certain word, I felt that experience too, and it brought that experience out in me. So we almost connected on experiences. And this is the best way I can describe it. If she said the word fire to me, I could see the glow of the fire. I could feel the warmth of that fire. I could hear the crackling of the wood. I could smell the burning of the wood. And she just started communicating so many just amazing things with me, and was telling me a little bit about why I couldn't go back behind that hill. But the gratitude that I felt that I even got to experience my grandma or my grandpa and niece it made it okay that I couldn't go back behind that hill, because I still got to experience that. And while she's comforting me and speaking with me, I feel this other presence come. Again, didn't see him first, and it was a man. And so I turned a little bit more, and just a handsome young man. I wish I was as handsome as he was. And they're sharing with me very personal things that no one could have ever known, that I've never told anybody. And they started talking about the power of prayer and trying to explain to me how these situations that I've gotten myself into that are self-inflicted, that I've done, how the power of prayer is so powerful, and how any human being on this earth, if you are a human on this earth, you are a child of God. You are a child of our Creator. And our God doesn't care what you call him. He just cares for you to call upon him for help. And so what they explained to me about the power of prayer is for every human on this earth to be able to have that gift. And they explained a little bit more about keeping my heart and my mind open to these prayers that I say. Because there was a lot of times that I kind of gave a halfway prayer, or people call it a foxhole prayer, when you're thinking you're about to die, then you finally pray, or you get in a bad situation, then you finally pray. And they were speaking with me about how that direct line of prayer is always open in good times and in bad. and that we needed to keep that relationship of prayer to our Heavenly Creator open, just like we would a relationship here on earth. If you're gonna try to get a girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife, you think you guys are gonna have a good connection if you only text them once a month, maybe once a week? You think you'll get married from that, or call them, that little bit of communication? And so they were telling me about how powerful it is and how we need to ask. We are always surrounded by loved ones, by angels, but we have our agency on this earth. And that's a beautiful thing, that we are given free will on this earth. And it sucks that some people choose to do bad things with it, but it's beautiful. And they told me we have our agency on this earth. And when we're having hard times, if it's our choice to choose to reach out to that connection of prayer, then God can grant loved ones, angels, whatever you want to call them, spirit guides. People have many different names. But if you open that line of communication with a sincere heart and an open mind, you will receive answers to prayers, but most times not in the way that you're thinking. Because I promise you, our Creator has a much better path for you than your mind can think. I want this, or I need this. And you pray for help, and then you might ask for something specific, and you might not get that specific thing. But I'll tell you what, if you prayed with an open heart and mind, you're going to get something that was way better than what you thought. And it might come in a way that you don't like. But like the times that I went to jail that saved my life, I'll tell you what, my family's prayers, my loved ones' prayers, both on the other side where I was and here, saved my life. And many times that was in the form of me going to jail. And that's when I tell people, don't think about this religiously. I am LDS and religious, but they were speaking with me about how everybody is a child of our Creator, and this is a gift for everybody. But when they're speaking with me about this prayer, I kind of question them in a way, because I've been in some hard places in life. Like I said, I was homeless. I lost everything. I was a drug addict. I thought I was worthless in this world. I thought no Creator could love something like me that was such a mess and just lied, stole, and cheat. How could anybody love me, type thing. And so I kind of questioned that, because I did say foxhole prayers in my homelessness and my addiction and stuff, and I didn't feel necessarily like anything ever worked. Why? How could it work? I was still homeless. I was still miserable. And they showed me these moments from my past. And one of the biggest ones for me was I was homeless in Layton, Utah, by a Walmart out there. And I would hold the sign up begging for money, and that is a horrible thing too, to be so low in your life that you're willing to feel humiliated and ashamed to hold the sign begging for money. I mean, I was stripped of everything, and they showed me this night that I went to this Little Caesars pizza, because in the dumpsters and back, sometimes it used to be this Kmart there, and the Little Caesars would throw certain items out of Kmart, and Little Caesars would throw certain food away. And if I was able to be the first person there, that's how I ate. And I remember thinking to myself, Landon, this is your last night on earth. You no longer have a purpose in this life if you are going to be holding a sign begging for money and going behind a dumpster to look for food, while you have a loving family out there. You have a daughter that's with your ex-fiance out there. That it was one of the worst nights of my life. And as I'm doing that, I just remember all of a sudden this feeling of someone coming behind and holding me again, and then wrapping their legs around me. And I felt that physically. Like when it happened, I kind of turned like, who the heck is grabbing me? And no one was there. And the peace that I felt from that moment kept me from committing suicide. It was indescribable. And they showed me this moment as if it was a vision, not like TV, but as if it was something I could step into and feel those feelings I felt again for a moment. And I saw these lights, just like the lights that were coming up from behind that hill. I saw these lights come down like a beam to me and hit me. And I just saw these dark, wispy is how I describe it. They didn't have a form, but many dark things just boom fled. And I saw that, and I know those were prayers. But the people who took time to pray for me during those times, they didn't know that their prayers were working. They prayed for me, my family and loved ones and friends, because they didn't know where I was, and they were terrified, and so they prayed. And I guarantee you, some of them, through those prayers, through those months and years, I was still doing the same thing. So in their mind, it's like, well, I didn't see it. My prayer didn't work. But thank goodness they didn't give up on me and stop praying, because those two people showed me this moment in my past where those prayers came and saved my life. And the people who prayed for me didn't know that happened, but their prayers worked. And I saw that. It shut me up quick. The little bit of questioning, the little bit of not having faith in prayers that I had because of my experiences, and then they showed me that. I will never in my life deny prayer again. Not only because to this day, I now am a little more in tune to feel spiritual things, both good and bad. I will never deny prayers because I feel them more powerful today, and I physically saw it, and I'm grateful for that, because I know a lot of people are like, man, I want to see that prayer is real. I want the proof. And if it's any consolation, I'm telling you my story that I physically saw those prayers. So if you have loved ones out there that are struggling from addiction, like I did, from anything, don't ever stop praying. Don't ever think that your good intentions and love towards another person, when you ask our Creator, our Heavenly Father, to help them with true intent from your heart, I promise you there will be answers to it. And some, you might see those answers. Others, you have no idea how it's answered, but it's being answered. And I saw that. And so prayer for me will, for the rest of my life, be one of the main foundations of how I make it through this world, and how I can help others make it through this world, because there's so much darkness. But never forget, there is so much light too. And there was a few other things that they communicated with me that could be future events, but they weren't telling me like this would happen. It was like, this could happen, and it's a fork in the road. Be wary type thing. They're showing me this could happen. And they didn't necessarily give me the answer on how to handle it, because again, I have my free agency on it. And the other thing is, how they communicated to me is that families can be together forever. And I know that because I felt my grandfather and my niece on the other side of that hill. I didn't see them, but I saw the lights, and honestly, feeling them the way I did is so much better than seeing them. And so for people who have lost loved ones, you will see them again. I get a heavy weight in my heart when I hear someone say, I don't believe in life after death, or atheists, when they say that. I don't judge them, but it hurts me knowing that they're going through life not having some type of comfort. That's a very dreary and sad thing to think about, going through this life, that your children, your family members, all the love that you have for them, every experience you've had with them. For atheists, if you think that when you die, all that love you had for your child, if you don't have a child, all that love you had for whoever in this world, do you want to continue life thinking that will just go away and mean nothing after this life? That I couldn't live this life thinking that. I know that what we do in this life matters. And so this experience that I've had is still so vivid in my mind. It was not a dream. I've had every type of dream you can have. Good dreams, nightmares. I mean, I've had the experience of category of dreams. This was not a dream. This was 1,000,000% a spiritual experience. Is the only way I can describe it. And I felt all the senses where I was. It wasn't a hallucination. I was there. I felt those senses. I saw my grandpa and my niece as lights behind that hill, beautiful lights. And the two people that were here, I actually saw them, and they were in white like gowns, and they were very real. And so I can tell you, it was no hallucination. It was no dream. It was 100% real. And as I'm talking up there with them, they're communicating with me all these amazing things that comfort me here on earth, that I don't know how I could get by without them. I get this rush. Imagine a tidal wave coming over me of just I love yous. And it wasn't just my grandpa and niece this time. It was all those colors behind that hill. It hit me again like the hug. And there wasn't any goodbyes. It was just, I love you. I'll see you again. And boom, I'm back above my body. I'm in this operating room with lights. I'm on a table, and it's like they had it sectioned off, like part of my head, it was like sectioned off by something, and they were doing brain surgery. It lasted over like 4 hours, and they kept telling my family, you know, we're just trying to get them past these first 24 hours. If this surgery doesn't work, we have to do another. But when I came back above my body, all those good feelings I felt up there were absolutely gone. I was almost focused on how terrible I felt again, with the anxiety, anguish, all that. It was just the most terrible feeling I can describe, and it's gotten a little easier for me emotionally now that I've been speaking about it a little bit more. But I just remember hearing this voice as I thought, I didn't think I could handle it anymore. All those feelings and everything, and seeing me on a surgery table for a minute, and I thought I was going to explode. And I heard that woman's voice that was up there with me, and she just said, "Landon, it's time." And I remember kind of being confused for a second, and she said it a second time, "Landon, it's time." And all of a sudden I just opened my eyes, and I saw these dark, wispy things fly out of the room, just like behind that dumpster. Just take off. And what I've come to think over because it's been about 2 years ago this happened, what I've come to think personally is, I don't know what those dark entities were exactly, but I believe they were holding me in that state of just confusion and being terrified and sadness. It's like they were able to hold me there. But I when I woke up, I saw those things flee. And later on, I told my mom about it while still in the hospital in the neuro ICU. And she said, your dad, your father came and gave you a priesthood blessing with another man. I bless this room that nothing will be in here to hinder my son's recovery. and to hurt him spiritually or physically. But when she told me that, I didn't know that right after my surgery, like when I kind of came out of, I call it a mini coma, obviously after brain surgery, I don't remember, but the first thing I said to my wife was, "Get my dad, I need a priesthood blessing." And I don't remember this, but I believe that blessing is what stopped those things from keeping me above my body in that horrible state. And finally, weeks later, as I'm kind of getting more of my senses back, because I had to learn to walk again, I had to learn to talk again, I had speech therapy, walking therapy. I got messed up, but I remember asking one of the nurses, I had this big Band-Aid strap thing on my knee still. I'm asking her, I'm like, why did they drill into my knee? Why were they doing that if I have a head injury? And she was like, well, they did that on your way here, but you were flatlined. I was flatlined many times, probably before the ambulance got to me, the paramedics, and during those rides and during my surgeries. So she was kind of confused because I told her I saw him doing it. She was like, whoa, like how did that happen? And another cool thing is one of the paramedic guys and the doctor, I don't know what he was, but he had a red pin in his shirt. And when I was above the ambulance, that's one thing I do remember, because it was so much chaos and confusion for me above the ambulance, wondering what's happening to me, where am I? But I do remember that red pin from the Oriental Asian guy. And I asked someone about that in the hospital, and I just kind of described him, and they told me who he was. And that's just another thing that can verify that I wasn't just getting a release of DMT and all that. Like people say, it was just a brain injury, head trauma. No, if you want to say that, how could I see these things and say these things to people and have it verified? It couldn't have been. The doctors, they were telling my poor wife, they didn't know if I would make it past 24 hours. And they just told her we're doing this emergency brain, I don't know all the words, for cranioplasty type thing on me. And if it didn't work, they were going to try one more, but they would have to fly me north to Salt Lake City, which is it's a 5-hour drive, so I don't know how long of a flight it would be, but basically the doctor later told me that if they would have had to have done that, I would have died. Like, they couldn't have done it. And luckily, in St. George at that time was one of the top neurosurgeons, and he was doing a training down here in St. George when that happened, and he's the one that worked on me. People call coincidences, yeah, they're coincidences, but when I pray every day, I see the miracles in this life. I don't see just the coincidences. As long as I pray and have an open heart and mind, I see miracles, not coincidences. And yes, I recovered miraculously fast. I was able to start walking well again so quick. They would put this thing on me and make me carry a weight behind me while I walked, and that sucked. And I had to do speech therapy again. But I was out of that neuro ICU. They couldn't believe it, how fast and how miraculous it was that I was healing, because there was other people in there with me with the same type of injuries that became brain dead. One guy died, they couldn't save him, and they were the same type of injuries, and people with strokes and stuff that I was in there with, that it messed them up for the rest of their lives if they happen to live. But somehow I'm here, and I'm not gonna waste this life. That's why I'm doing these podcasts. I'm not gonna waste this message and this miracle that I was given and not at least share it with others to give hope. How greedy of me would that be to keep this message to myself if I was able to come back to this earth and still talk and walk and help others, I'm not gonna waste the miracle that I got. I have been down in the dumps. I have been a liar, a thief, a robber, a heroin addict, a homeless. I've been through it all. And now I am so grateful for each of those experiences because we came to this earth to learn. And I'll tell you what, I must have taken I went to a bad college or something, the way I'm learning it, but I'm so grateful for it because if I didn't have those hardships, which I saw prayer help me through them, then I couldn't be speaking to you right now and trying to give this message of hope to others. And being a drug addict, I go to AA meetings, I speak with other drug addicts, and I love it because how could I connect with them if I wasn't a drug addict? And when I was up there and they were talking about prayer with me, they were telling me that you can specifically pray to our Heavenly Father to have certain family members help you if they've passed on, because there is life after this life. And he will allow certain angels, spirit guides, whatever you want to call them, but in my experience, that he will even allow certain loved ones to help you through experiences. Because how can you help somebody, like thoroughly and truly understand and help somebody in a situation unless you've been through it too? It's kind of like a teacher. How can you be a teacher if you didn't learn first? And so I thought that was incredible. But one thing I don't want people to get mixed up is you don't pray to that person, but you pray to our Heavenly Father for that person to help you, and you can get that help and you can get that comfort. But they cannot always be there to help you if you don't ask. And if you ask with an open heart and mind, and don't have certain expectations of what you think you need and God needs to do it for you. Because our Creator has such better plans for us in ways that we couldn't comprehend and that we might not like sometimes. So after my NDE, something has changed within me. It's hard to explain. I don't tell a lot of people, but I see auras around certain people. Some days I'll see a couple. Other days or weeks I won't see any. And they're hard to describe colors, but they're different on certain people. And I don't know what that means. I have no idea, but it happens. Like I'll tell you, last night, or it happened, I was at an AA meeting and this girl started talking about how her father just wrote her and said his brain aneurysms could burst any time and how to appreciate the life we have on this earth because it can end any time. And as she's talking about that, I just see this aura coming around her. It's like yellowish, pinkish. I can't even describe the color, but I started seeing this aura come around her, and it almost made me kind of sit back in my seat. I was like, oh, whoa, because it's such a cool experience when I see those things, but they don't happen often. And the other thing is that I have foresight about certain things that will happen soon after. And at first I tried telling myself, no, that's a coincidence. No, that it's, I kept telling myself, no, there's no way type thing. But it's come to the point where it's happened so much that I can't deny it. And as long as I'm living right, trying to be a good person, and I keep an open heart and mind, I have the gift of a still small voice that helps guide me in this world. As long as I'm trying my best to do good and it guides me, it's guided me many times to, Landon, you need to talk to this person, or Landon, you need to go here. And when I do those things and I listen to it, like let's say it says you need to talk to this person, that I won't name names, but that person was like, dude, I haven't talked to you in like over a year. Why'd you call me right now? almost an offended way at first. And I was like, buddy, I was just calling. I felt like I needed to see how you were doing, bro. And he was telling me he was just about to commit suicide, man. And so I can't deny that. That's what I mean. At first I was trying to say it's just coincidence, or it can't be real, but there's been other occasions like that with people and situations that if I'm doing the right thing in my life, it's there. And I'll tell you what, everybody can have the gift of discernment. There's been a lot of times where something's happened that I knew it was going to happen right before, or I've listened to that still small voice where I've helped someone in that moment, just like when I saw me get saved by those prayers that nobody else even knew they were working, but they did. And so I try very hard to keep that line of communication open with whatever you want to call it. I call it the still small voice. Those instances have increased 1,000,000-fold since my incident, and I don't share a lot of them with people because it happens even throughout the day quite a bit, and I don't share it. I just have come to terms that it's no longer coincidence, and if I feel truly inspired that I need to do or say something, then I do it. One of the biggest reasons that I want to start doing these podcasts to help people, because I have no fear of death. I've died. It hurt. It hurt. I came back. But when I passed away, where I was, it's indescribable. There was no judgment. There was no pain. There was no fear. Like I said, when we communicated, it was almost like we both were heart to heart sharing an experience totally truthfully with not judging each other type thing. It was beautiful. But I don't have fear of death. I guess maybe sometimes I have fear of how I'll die again because the first one wasn't very fun, but the ultimate end of fear of death, no. I know there's life after this life. I know that our loved ones are watching over us, and if we pray to our Creator for help, that they can do it. They can help us. And I know that you'll see your loved ones again. And I know that what you do in this life matters. Don't think that you can just do whatever you want in this life with no consequences. Because the way I like to look at it is I can do everything I can in this life for the benefits of the afterlife, or the life after this life. And I will see my loved ones again. I already have. So I'm telling you from a first person thing. I've seen them. I saw them again. I felt them. Anybody out there missing someone, you will see them again. And I don't fear death. But I do fear whatever that in between was that I felt above the ambulance. Whatever that middle area was, I do fear that immensely. It really did give me PTSD. It was when I think it, yeah, I just don't like to think about it. But no, I don't fear death, and I know we'll see our loved ones again, and that's such a comforting thing to me, and that's what I want to share with others. I want to be able to help comfort others in this world, because there is a lot of depressed people missing loved ones. There's a lot of evil. There's a lot of anxiety and being scared. And if you don't have some type of anchor, like for me, my anchor is Jesus Christ. He's my anchor. But if you don't have some type of anchor, even hope that maybe you'll see loved ones after this life, even just hoping and have a little bit of faith can clear out so much depression and anxiety. Look at how much beauty and happiness and good is also going on. So don't focus on the bad. Be aware of it, but don't focus on it. And sometimes this world gets to me so much that I have to get down on my knees and pray, because it's just the weight of all the heaviness and depression. And since my accident too, I've become much more like, I have a lot more empathy for people, and it can be rough for me sometimes, because I feel emotions a lot more than I did before. And when I see our world right now, I see the chaos and the evil and the sadness. Yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. And if you keep looking for that bad stuff, you're going to find it. But there's also so much good stuff going on. And I would recommend you to take a few moments out of each day, just a moment even, to sit there and be like, how grateful am I for my child, my husband, this family member? How grateful am I that I have a car that runs? You know what I mean? Just little things that you just go by you every day, and instead of being grateful for them, you're passing them by and going and looking at all the evil going on in the world. That's hard. That's very hard. That's very depressing. And so I would encourage people to find that anchor in their life that they can look to when they feel like they're feeling too much, suicidal or depressed. I've been there. I know. I would encourage you to find an anchor and just try it out. My anchor started with prayer. And it didn't make sense to me at first. It was hard. It felt weird. But just try it out. And there's no wrong way to pray. I pray like I'm talking to my best friend. Sometimes I pray on my knees. Sometimes I'm walking through a crowd, or I just wake up and I pray. Like I said, our Creator just wants that connection with us. And take a moment out of each day to even think of one thing you're grateful for. I mean, I'm sure you can come up with a list of a million things if that's what you're focused on, and that'll make you happier. So try to find your anchor and try to focus on how you can help others, because that's how I'm staying out of my drug addiction, is by getting out of myself and trying to speak and help others, because it makes me feel so much better doing it. And so in the world today, I would encourage people to do those things. And they're such small acts. In a 24-hour day, those small acts could take minutes. But if they could change your life, isn't it worth it?